The Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Have New Zealand heads of mission overseas been recalled to a meeting in Wellington on the 2nd of April? And if so, what is the cost of holding this meeting?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Speaker, no head of mission has been recalled. The member should know that term has a particular connotation in the diplomatic community, and it does not apply in this instance. It is now clear that significant modifications are called for to the change proposals circulated to MFAT staff. To the extent that large-scale outsourcing arrangements are not proceeded with, different arrangements involving enhanced responsibilities...
Phil Goff, point of order.
Mr Speaker, I implied no such connotation in the use of the word recall. Recall to most New Zealanders would be to call back to New Zealand, and I therefore ask you to ask the Minister to answer my question, which did not have the connotations he alleged.
Order. I've got to accept that. I've got to accept the Minister's interpretation of a question. However, the question was very specific and did not invite the Minister to carry on with the information he was providing to the House. Now, the Minister has denied that heads of mission overseas have been recalled to a meeting in Wellington. He's denied that. Now, that leaves, I would have thought, the questioner with very good supplementary question material. But the Minister should not go on with the rest of the information he was providing, because the primary question did not ask anything about that. It asked whether or not heads of mission have been recalled to a meeting in Wellington on 2nd of April. If so, what is the cost of holding this meeting? It did not ask about other arrangements at all. But the Minister has interpreted the question the way he did, but there is, I would have thought, plenty of room for supplementary questions. The Honourable Phil Goff.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Is the Ministry bringing back its heads of missions from overseas on the 2nd of April, and if so, what's the cost of doing that?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Speaker, it is now clear that significant modifications are called for to the change proposals.
Point of order, the Honourable Phil Goff.
Speaker, we're hearing a regurgitation of the previous answer. It is not answering a very simple and direct question.
Order. I think the member's complaint is a fair point of order. The question was very specific. It asked if heads of missions have been brought back or being brought back to Wellington for a meeting on 2nd of April. I don't want to get it wrong. What I'll do under the circumstances is invite the Honourable Phil Goff to repeat his question.
Mr Speaker, supplementary to the Minister, have heads of missions been called back to New Zealand to a meeting in Wellington on the 2nd of April, and if so, what is the cost of doing that?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
The Chief Executive has signalled to heads of mission that they can expect an invitation to a meeting in Wellington in April to discuss their roles in the change process. This has been necessitated by the fact that large-scale outsourcing proposals involved in the MFAT consultation process will not be proceeded with. Many but not all heads of mission are likely to attend. I am advised that the process is likely to cost around $200,000. Given the key role that our heads of mission will play in achieving $25 million a year in operating economies, that does not appear to me to be unreasonable.
The supplementary question is the Minister telling the House that he's bringing back most heads of mission at the cost of at least $200,000 to tell them that his restructuring proposals aren't going to go ahead in the form that he proposed because they're unworkable?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Mr Speaker, let me be very clear about this. I have not asked the heads of mission to come to Wellington. The Chief Executive has invited heads of mission to come to Wellington for the meeting. I have indicated to the Chief Executive that I support him in issuing that invitation. The proposals that have been put out to staff for consultation clearly require significant modification, and those modifications will involve an enhanced role for those heads of mission.
Supplementary question, Mr
Order.
Speaker.
Before I call the Honourable Phil Goff for a further supplementary question, I take his supplementary questions to be serious. I ask his colleagues to enable the Minister to be heard. The Honourable Phil Goff.
Has the Minister allowed to be spent millions of dollars on consultants for the change process and 34 staff listed in his staff directory as being in the Change Program Office, and now several $100,000 to bring the heads of missions back, all to tell them that the proposals that he's been labouring on for over a year aren't going ahead.
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Mr. Speaker, the Chief Executive circulated detailed proposals for change because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs needs to undergo significant modernisation to ensure, for a start, that its footprint comes close to matching the significant changes that have taken place to New Zealand's trade and economic interests. The member might like to reflect on the fact that Mr Allen confronts this task because he was asleep on the job when the member was Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Is the Minister now telling the House that it's all Mr Allen's fault and that in fact Mr Allen did not consult with him closely at every step of the way about the direction of the change and the fact that he as Minister expected $40 million in cuts from his ministry?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Speaker, I've made it very clear that the proposals circulated to Ministry staff come from Ministry management and not from me. Any concerns that I had about those proposals were made known to the management prior to that consultation process. Many of those concerns have been reflected in the feedback from heads of mission and from staff. Now that that process is drawing to a close, I want to facilitate decisions that will ensure further work can take place in those areas in which productive change can occur, but also ensure that debate can be curtailed in those areas where it would only be destructive to be continued.
Supplementary question.
The Honourable Phil Goff.
Does this Minister take no responsibility for the restructuring proposals and the $40 million in cuts? And are those $40 million of cuts in this document all a figment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade's imagination?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Speaker, I can confirm that a figure of $25 million of economies was sought in a letter sent to the Chief Executive by the Treasury and by the State Services Commission. Certainly, in part, the proposals that were put forward by the MFAT management team are an attempt to meet that request from the Treasury and the State Services Commission. They are also, though, sir, a significant attempt to modernise a ministry that has escaped change for many decades, and I invite the member to consider whether, in part, this is necessitated by the neglect of previous ministers like himself.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, is the Minister and the Government expecting by 2014 the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade to make savings of $40 million a year, as they state in his briefing to him they are required to do?
The Honourable Murray McCully.
Speaker, the member is confused. The briefing to the incoming Minister was written by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs without knowing who had been elected as the government and who the Minister was who was being appointed. The figure that I refer to is a figure of $24 million, which is contained in a letter from the Secretary to the Treasury and the State Services Commissioner to the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and that is the request that I have told him I support.
Question number 12, Dr. Kennedy Graham.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.